Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, isn't this what we've been talking about for I don't know how long? That first, the problem is going to start with prices, and that eventually it would turn into scarcity. Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, if people cannot feed their families or their children, there will be violence. There will be riots, not protests, riots. We've often heard that phrase that anarchy is but 9 meals away, something like that. So pretty much whenever someone's gone 2 or 3 days without eating, they will do whatever they feel they need to in order to feed themselves and, more importantly, their children. So there will be violence. How do I know this? Because even the UN is saying there might be violence. And whenever they say there might be something, it means that it's going to happen. I don't believe that it's just going to happen overseas, outside of our borders, meaning here in the United States. I believe that eventually it will be here in the United States en masse. It's already happening now, but in very centralized, localized places. But en masse, I believe it will happen because there will come a time where people just cannot afford food. And here the UN is saying that social unrest is coming. Well, it's already here. Maybe just not at the scale that we think of when we see films, videos, whatever, from other countries like Sri Lanka, as I've mentioned before. And they say that the consequences of this social unrest that is coming is a war-fueled food inflation. Now, I have to agree with that, but I believe that what they're doing here is they're telling us what is coming, so you have to prepare. Now, I've broken this video down into 2 portions. The first portion is going to be me going over this short article right here. But ladies and gentlemen, please stay for the second part. If you want to skip to the second part, I'm going to leave chapters on this video so you can just skip it right to where the second part of this starts, because it is going to be a part that is very important. I want to remind you of something that happened a long time ago that we were lied to about. And I discovered this here not too long ago, that the University of Alaska / Fairbanks, they discovered that everything that we were told about what happened about 21 years ago or so, it's a lie. And I'm going to go ahead and read that to you, and I'm going to provide you with the link to that study that the University of Alaska Fairbanks did. But first, let's go ahead and read on with this. The UN says that social unrest is coming as a consequence of war-fueled food inflation. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let's go ahead and call a spade a spade. This food inflation is not war-fueled. All right, ladies and gentlemen, these food inflation and the inflation of everything, it's not just food, all right? It's the inflation of everything, the inflation in prices of everything, all right, is because of the policies that governments pass. When politicians fail, it is you and I, the common folks, that suffer. You don't see any of these politicians suffering. You don't see any of these people in the IMF suffering. They're still wearing their $2,000 outfits and they're still flying on their Learjets. So them coming out here and warning us about this, or kind of warning us about this, is their way of saying, hey, we warned you. So now it's up to you to take care of it, because when everything goes to heck, we warned you. That's how they like to play their games, in my opinion, of course. And here David Beasley says, who is the current head of the United Nations World Food Program. He is warning that a perfect storm of global economic collapse is rapidly forming. And we all know this. Extreme weather, war, the health crisis, and financial failure are all simultaneously setting the stage for a war-fueled crisis of biblical proportions. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about this for a long time. We've seen this coming for a long time. Why are they now talking about this now, just now? You know why? Because they're prepared. Believe it. All of these people that are talking about this, they've been preparing for years. But they've been waiting to the last minute to let you know about it. So if you're not prepared, you better get started, and get started in a hurry. And here Beasley says that if people can't feed their children or their families, then politics unsettles. The UN itself is now having to ration its food supplies due to high prices and supply disruptions. This is causing millions of people who rely on this sustenance to suffer. What have I said in the past? That whenever government gives you something, government can take that something away. So do not become dependent on someone else, at the minimum, for your sustenance, ladies and gentlemen. He says that if we are not there with a safety net program, then the political extremists, or whatever the case may be, will exploit that, noting that many hungry children are suffering. Next thing you know, you've got riots, famine, destabilization, and the mass migration by necessity. The biggest problem this year, according to Beasley, is food prices. Next year it will morph into a food availability problem. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, isn't this what we've been talking about for I don't know how long? That first, the problem is going to start with prices, and that eventually it would turn into scarcity. Imagine that. And guess what? I don't even have a PhD. And I'm not a millionaire. I'm just a common guy that can see and that can hear. But it takes a PhD to come out here, or whatever he is. He's probably multiple PhDs under this guy's belt, to tell people what is going to happen. Same thing we've been talking about for years now. If you're one of those people that don't think that a common person, a regular person, can have perspective that is accurate and that is foregoing on into the future, meaning that you can look out into the future and say, hey, this is probably what's going to happen, then go ahead and listen to this gentleman now. Because it's not just a person with an associate's degree telling you. It's someone who's probably got several PhDs under his belt. Incredible. And I haven't read this article fully yet. He says the biggest problem this year, according to Beasley, is food prices. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, next year it will morph into a food availability problem as supplies run dry due to various factors. I hope you're paying attention, because I'm telling you, I know I've been sounding this horn long and loud. But goodness gracious, I would say that at least 95%, if not more than that, of Americans alone are not prepared to last a week to a month in their homes without food, without having to go out for food, because they are that dependent on one thing or another. How hard is it for you to pick up a couple extra pounds of pasta every time that you go shopping? What is that, an extra $1, an extra $1.50? Maybe an extra $2 now with food inflation the way that it is. But it's not difficult. Give something up that doesn't add value to your life and pick up the extra food, because you are going to need it. I care about my American brothers and sisters, and I care about my brothers and sisters that are abroad. Do what is right and prepare now, because you are going to need it. If not, you will suffer. It continues to say here, 2022 will see the worst humanitarian crisis since World War II, and it'll probably be much worse. The entire world is feeling the pain of all this, but poorer countries are feeling it the worst. Beasley says that many African countries are already in a state of social unrest due to the lack of food, or food becoming too expensive for families to afford. I've often stated that when chaos begins, it begins outside our borders. Like when the financial system starts to implode, it'll begin outside of our borders. And then here in the United States, we will get it last. There's many varying reasons for that. First of all, most important one is that we hold the reserve currency of the world, meaning that our dollar still has more value, really, than most of the fiat currencies in the world. There are some that are actually more valuable than the dollar, but than most of the fiat currencies in the world, because it is still in demand. So that kind of like helps us, because we do import a lot of the things that we eat, and we also import a lot of the tools and machinery that we need in order to farm and to produce the things that we eat. So we are at an advantage. But eventually, just as I know, I'm sure you know, eventually the US dollar will fail. it will go to its intrinsic value, which is nothing. And then who is going to send us those parts that we need? Then who is going to export so that we can import those foods that we actually import here into the United States? Who's going to do it when the dollar is worth nothing? And that is what we have to be preparing for the day when that dollar implodes and no one will send us a thing. No one will send us oil, no will send us food, will send us fertilizer, will send us anything. That's what we have to be preparing for. Yes, we have farmers. Yes, we have farms. But please send me the address and the phone number of one farmer that you know that does it for free so that I can have him send me some of the grain that he or she raises. And listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is where these people are just messed up. I'm not a millionaire, all right? I'm not a millionaire. But money is not going to fix this. It's the policies that are being passed by governments. He finishes off by saying, I just need 2 days of your net worth increase. He says to the upper crust or upper class is what I'm guessing they're saying. Is that too much to ask? Why does he need 2 days worth of the upper class's net worth? Why? What's he going to do with all that money? In the United States, in the last 50 plus years, the United States government has taken and then spent $30 trillion to fight what? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we just talked about this not too long ago. To fight poverty. $30 trillion. And today, poverty is higher than what it was when they started. The problem is not billionaires. The problem is not millionaires. The problem are the policies, and the problems are the politicians that get bought out, all right, that get bribed, that get bought out by these large corporations and billionaires. They buy them out. Why? Because they can. Because they're in it to make money. But if there weren't people that were in it to make money, then you wouldn't have farmers. For the exact same reason that I stated before. Show me one farmer that does it for free so that I can give him my address and he can send me a ton of grain every month. No farmer does it for free, ladies and gentlemen. They may love doing it, but they won't do it for free. All right, let me go ahead and prep you up for what's coming, okay? I'm not going to mention too much about this. I'm just going to read a couple excerpts from a study that the University of Alaska Fairbanks conducted, I don't know, several years ago now, 4, 5, 6 years ago. All right. And then I'm going to let you make up your own mind. And the reason that I'm reading this to you is so that you can understand that you will never be told the truth. That government will never tell you the truth. And even when the truth is discovered, it is hidden. It is hidden by the mainstream media because they are part of the government. They are controlled by the government. The government is controlled by the banks and the elites. So just listen to this. This report represents the findings and conclusions of a 4-year study of the collapse of the WTC, okay, of this right here, the WTC building, number 7, which was a 47-story building that suffered a total collapse at 5:20 p.m. on September of this date and this year, following the horrible events of that morning. I'm only going to read you a very small part of this. I will leave the link to this, all right, in a pinned comment. And if you want to, go ahead and read the whole thing. But I believe that the small part that I'm going to read for you right now should be enough. But I will leave the link to this, ladies and gentlemen. Why am I doing this? Because first of all, we can never forget, ever. All right, we can never forget. And second of all, because we must know that government is not there for us, that they will lie to us and they will set us up for failure every single time. The only thing that government can do, ladies and gentlemen, is take from you, number one, and then give us all of the sorrow that we can possibly handle. All right, so I'm going to read to you this short part, but like I said, this is a great read. I can't say that I've read every page, but they do have an appendices, I think is how you call it, or appendix, all right, up top that you can actually pick and choose, and you can actually download this as well. So here, this was a 4-year-long study that the University of Alaska Fairbanks conducted on the collapse of WTC 7 on that month the 11th day on the year of 01. It is our conclusion that the collapse of WT7 was a global failure. And by global failure, they means that it's something that has never ever happened before, and that is like beyond physics. Like physics says, this should have never happened, right? Like the bumblebee, right? Like the bumblebee can fly. You know, according to physics, it's not supposed to be able to fly because of its body shape, whatever. But a global failure is that this thing should have never happened. It's never happened before in history. All right? It was a global failure involving the near simultaneous failure of all columns in the building, and not a progressive collapse involving the sequential failure of columns throughout the building. So what they're saying here is that when this building fell down, all of the columns that were holding it up failed at the same time. Why? Because the building went down in a straight free fall for a little over 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds or full. So if it was the failure of a few columns that allowed the other columns to weaken and then fall down, it would have fallen down kind of like on a shift angle, like at an angle, but not straight down. All right. So what the investigators who initially investigated this, that were part of the government, they said that it was 3 or 4 or 5 different columns that failed because of heat. All right. And then because of the failure of those columns, the building fell down completely. But here what they're saying is that according to their study, that if it was because of the failure of a few columns, then that the building would not have fallen straight down, but at an angle. And as we all know, the building fell straight down in a manner that is conducive with a demolition of a building. All right. And then here they continue to say, despite simulating a number of hypothetical scenarios, we were unable to identify any progressive sequence of failures that could have taken place on that date and caused a total collapse of the building, let alone the observed straight down collapse with approximately 2.5 seconds of free fall and minimal differential movement of the exterior. Again, minimal differential movement of the exterior means that these are the outside walls of that building, that they came straight down. Would it have been, as they noted in the initial investigation, that it was a few columns that were affected and then they affected the other ones, the building would have gone like this, meaning that the outside walls would have been shifted. But instead they came straight down. There's a lot to read here, ladies and gentlemen. There was something else here, but I'm going to let you go through it because there's quite a lot. And I mean, they've got the entire study here, everything, and you can just look right through it. It's actually very interesting. But the point of the matter is this, is that if they would lie to you about something like this and the media would cover that lie up for whatever reason, why in the world do you think that they wouldn't lie to you about you not being able to get food in the near future to feed your family and having to become reliant on the government to feed you? Why do you think they wouldn't lie to you about that? If you think they're not lying to you, then by all means, you don't have to prepare. It's up to you. We have free will. You don't have to. But if you don't, I'm afraid that you will have to be the bearer and pay for the consequences of your inactions today, tomorrow. Having said that, I hope you take a look at this report, and I hope that you understand where I'm coming from, that you are on your own. We are on our own, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure that you keep your family close. Make sure that you're praying to your God, whoever he or she is to you, and whatever you may call him, because that's going to be important in the days going forward. Your faith will be very important. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow I have a video coming out about how I YouTube. All right. It's how I YouTube. I've had a lot of people reach out to me asking me questions about editing software, about how I do this, how I do that, microphones and stuff like that. So I decided to do a little behind the scenes video showing everyone what it is that I do in order to make my videos, which There's not that much production value in them, of course, but I just show everyone what kind of equipment I use, microphone I use, all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a long video, but I really wanted to talk with you all during that video and not to you. So it ended up being a little bit of a long video, but I hope that it will help some of you out there that are maybe starting out with YouTube or maybe thinking about starting your own YouTube channel. But that will be up tomorrow, and I might just put out a live stream tomorrow just to catch up with all of you because I did not have a live stream this Sunday. Having said that, again, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I am out.